Welcome back to the Real Estate 401k Show, and your host, Mike Weinstein, alongside Ryan Gerdes down at the end and Justin Frederick sandwiched in the middle. So this is kind of, it's a story, but it's a story that reflects what we do as real estate wealth managers. And people always go, well, what's the difference between you, real estate wealth manager or a realtor? And whenever they say realtor, real estate agent, I'm like, hey, no need for name calling. But at the end of the day, we're licensed real estate professionals. We hold, real estate outside of Justin. We hold real estate licenses here in the state of Arizona. And so I think a recent story will exemplify and really kind of explain the differences of what we do. And the story starts with a young couple kids getting relocated to a different state because of a job. They bought a house 5 or 6 years ago, and they call me up and say, okay, and they called me up. I didn't have to call them and say, hey, let me in to explain your options. They're like, we'd love you to come over and meet with us to go through our options. And I flippin' love that. So I had to do all my would you say something?
No.
Oh. So I had to do all my due diligence, because typically when somebody's getting ready to relocate, their first response is, we're selling. So they need to know how much their house is worth and if we were going to put it on the market and so forth. And so obviously I prepped for that, but I was also prepping for the different options if they choose to keep their house and turn it into an income producing property. And so it was fantastic. So you go over and you begin to walk the property. That's the first thing that we do. Show us your property. Show us what you know is wrong with the house, and show us the upgrades that I'm not seeing, and so forth. And the whole time I'm like, this whole sucker needs to be painted. So I got to figure out when I'm gonna dump that on them. I mean, it's a big house, and it needs a lot of paint. Like, there's not one wall that doesn't need paint.
Well, the good news is painting is usually one of the cheaper things to do. When it's not like replacing cabinets or flooring. So probably going to get away with a little bit of dodging a little bit of a bullet on that one. But that story is no different than the story from a lot of our guys that come in from the military.
Mm-hmm.
They're here 2 to 4 years sometimes before they get their next assignment. And so one of the beauties about what they can do is, on the lending side, they get to reestablish a primary residence all over the United States. I mean, talk about diversification, right? Like, if one market does well and the other one is struggling, then it can compensate for itself, and it's really just and with a VA entitlement, I mean, they can do a lot of really cool stuff with very minimal funds out of pocket. And that's one of the things that I love about what Justin and his outfit do, is because you guys are options dealers too. Because it's no different on the lending side that it is on the real estate side. Because for me, my go-to is always going to be, how can we keep this home? Especially if they have a 2 or a 3 in front of their interest rate, which most of them do. I'm saying, hey, look, you're not just selling the home here; you're selling the mortgage, something that you're like. Let's be honest,
you're not going to get this.
You're never, for the rest of your life, you're probably never going to see another interest rate with a 2 or a 3 in front of it that is, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or VA or FHA. It's going to be Uncle Tom or Aunt Susan that's going to be providing interest rates like that, if you ever want to see that.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to be in front of those people that see the wisdom in that, because then we can start having extremely intelligent conversations on it and start building out a plan on how we're going to convert it into an interest or into a income producing property, and ultimately help them retire sooner, or help them retire more comfortably, or just plug them in, and to me that's super rewarding. And then I can turn them over to Justin's team, and then they can go over the thousands of different financing.
Oh, I already did. I turned them over to Justin's team for the state that they're relocating in. And
because numbers are numbers. Doesn't matter if it's in Wisconsin or Arizona. We can still pull a lot of those numbers, put them into our calculators, and then build out pro formas based on data. Because those numbers don't lie, and it's really a cool thing for them to watch it, because it just turns from sticks and stones to an actual statement similar to what they would get if they had a fund with Edward Jones or any of those financial advisors, and so it kind of just shapes their way of thinking on it, and it's a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, so some of the options that we go over, and this is why, if you are remotely thinking about selling your home, we would encourage you to reach out to us to explore your options before you just simply slap a sign in front of the yard, a lockbox on the house, and put it on the market. We want to explain these options, and you can do that, and you can learn more about it by texting the word option to 623 AZ RECON. That's option to 623 AZ RECON. And there's always the obvious, okay? We put your house on the market. This is what you owe. This is what it's going to cost to sell. And we always come with a net settlement sheet and highlight, and this is the amount of money that you're going to put in your pocket. And I always go through that last. That's the last thing I share with them, because again, I want you to consider keeping the property. And then we were able to go through, okay, typically a landlord thinks in terms of long-term rental, 12 or months longer. So here's the cap rate on your property. Here's what we are projecting the rent to be, and how we project the rent to grow over the next 5 years, which no one does that.
Right.
And here's your positive cash flow situation. Here's the pros. Here's the cons. Okay. Here's also what it looks like as a Airbnb or short-term rental. So we're going to take a look at area and produce the numbers. And it's funny because they get excited when they see those numbers, and then we have to explain ramp up. Okay. Those numbers are not your numbers right now. Those numbers are when you get this thing established.
12, 18 months.
Right. And watching them go and saying, okay, I possibly could make $200 a month more doing Airbnb. That's how the numbers panned out. And then I get all the headaches. And it's the $200 a month. And so they were able to see, okay, that may not be it. And then be able to go to the midterm. We talked about it on the last episode, talk about spring training. The midterm is a ever growing market space. People looking for a place anywhere from 30 days to 11 months or under that 12-month mark, whether it's somebody whose house burnt down and they need, kitchen burnt down, they need a place to stay, and insurance is paying for it, and going through their numbers. So then now talking with Justin, and they're relocating, they're able to now, they have all of those options. They have all of that information to help them make that decision.
Sure. And another example that we're helping some folks with right now, it's an investor, good friends of ours, and they bought a home. They converted it to an Airbnb about 5 years ago, and they take their business very seriously. So within a few months, they had already had about $40,000 that they put into it. The place looks immaculate, and they got it up and running, and they've built a business out of it. They generate about $75,000 a year off of it, and their interest rate is 4%. And so on a comp level, it comps out to about 575. But because they've taken so many of these strategies and built a business out of it, I can confidently go over and sell it for 625. Because I'm not just selling the home. Now we're selling a business with an interest rate because they're willing to carry. And so that they went into it with that type of mindset and that type of strategy. So they're going to probably net an extra $50,000 just because they're paying attention to the market and paying attention to the moves that they're making. So there's when we say options, it's not just turn it into a rental.
Right.
Like there's so much creativity in real estate, and there's so many different options out there. We want to explore all of them, and I love being creative with it. And what they're doing over there is it's awesome. I want to know a little bit about what your thoughts are and the options that you usually jump to when it comes to someone says, "Hey, Justin, I want to know what it looks like to invest in real estate, and what's my best route."
So I love preaching about investments. I talk about personal history, what that's done for me, and I talk about future. I talk about retirement. I always like getting the first time home buyers, and I tell them, you need to look at this as an investment. Like, you're not just buying a home to live in. Look at this as an investment. You don't want to lose money to start with. You want to start off on the right foot. We need to look at, eventually you're probably going to end up, upgrading you don't have any kids right now. Eventually you'll have kids. So you're going to start looking at schools and what's around it. I said, you got to apply that to even this home though, because if you want it to be a good investment, it's all about location. You need to look at the schools right now, even though you don't have any children. You need to look at what's driving this area, what's driving the demand in this area, because you want to hold that value and increase that value. I love going through it, and I love talking about projected rents. And I don't have the tools that you guys use for projected rents. So I use our favorite tool, Zillow over there.
Mm-hmm. That's okay.
Yeah. But
just introduce them to us and we'll go through it.
Yeah,
with
of course.
them, right?
Well, and the thing that I hear a lot about, particularly in like the beginning investor, they say, we qualified for this property that we're moving into, and we're talking about eventually turning it into an income producing property. But how the heck am I going to get approved for another home if I don't sell this guy when I'm having a hard time qualifying for it in the first place?
And we talk about that too. We talk about putting in a departing lease. So basically,
what is a departing lease?
Yeah. So once you're ready to move on to the next property, we can get a lease on your current property that will basically exclude the liability of that current property from your liabilities. So we are counting it into your debt to income ratio, but we're eliminating it in your debt to income ratio by getting a lease in place to basically counteract the mortgage payment that you're receiving. People don't understand going on to the next property, getting a lease on your current property eliminates that liability. You'll be able to qualify. If you're qualifying for your current home right now and you're going to something the same, you'll be able to qualify for that.
And I don't want to poo-poo any other lenders, but how often do you see someone come to you and say, I couldn't get approved?
No, it's all the time. It's all the time. I mean, every story that I talk about is typically a story that I'm getting because another lender isn't qualifying them. And it's unfortunate, but we don't get training to do what we do. It's on the job training. I look at my job, and I know this sounds childish, but I look at my job as a video game. This is my video game. This is my life. When you were in your teens, trying to dominate the video game, find the cheat codes. You're trying to find every avenue to get you to the end the fastest that you could. This is my video game. This is my life. I dive into this and I try to find all the cheat codes, all the loopholes. Yeah. I try to make sure I have the best knowledge of every single program. Knowledge is power. I can use that knowledge to help orchestrate a loan in the right way to make things the best I can for an individual, get them qualified for certain things that other people couldn't get them qualified.
So you got the up, down, left, right,
A, B, select start. Yep, you got it. That's it. It's Contra.
All right, I dare ask, guys, favorite childhood video game?
Well, I stopped playing video games in college, but I will mop anyone up in Nintendo 64 Mario Kart and in Street Fighter.
Ooh.
I mean, call me to the carpet.
Okay. Mine was GoldenEye, Nintendo 64.
I was good, and then I lost it.
Yeah.
GoldenEye was.
Well, I don't know if you guys knew this about me, but I'm a little bit older than you. So
Yeah.
I mean, I remember getting the first Atari.
I was about to say,
and Pitfall, man, that was the game. Pitfall, I loved it.
I wish I could say I knew what Pitfall was. Maybe I would know it if I saw the game, but
You've probably
the
never
tank game on
seen the
Atari
game,
was
yeah.
the coolest one I ever saw.
All right. Well, if you'd like to learn more about options and lending options, and we just and it's not benefiting us to have a sit down and do a free consultation with you. This is all about you. This is all about your wealth building strategies. If you're thinking about selling your home, just text into us and let us sit down and help you explore those options. All you got to do is text the word option to 623 AZ RECON. That's option to 623 AZ RECON.